So when I talk about China, China is essentially executing the same playbook the colonizers did before. I call it China. I don't think I phrased this. I don't think I came up with this term, but I call it colonialism 2.0, right? So what happens in that section? I do a full data analysis. I look at the evidence and I give you evidence from Jamaica, Kenya, Tanzania. What's the other? Not Zaire, but another African countries, and I give you data and analysis that shows what China has been doing. So fundamentally, okay, what China is doing is not brutality in terms of they coming in and they're using force. Back then for colonialism, they used the army, they used the institutions, from a slavery to transition from slavery over to colonialism, right? Now what China is doing is using cash, is using capital. So I give the example of in Kenya where they loaned, they built a railroad in Kenya, and it was billions and billions of dollars. And COVID time came, and they couldn't meet the debt payment, right? So what happened in that situation when they couldn't meet the debt payment? Chinese said, "Okay, you can't meet the debt payment, then we'll take your port as collateral." Can you imagine how just think about that for a second. We'll come and we'll take your port as collateral. Now remember, that was always the plan. China's benefit is not looking to get a return on investment in terms of capital. They're looking to get a return in regards to national assets where they can use those national assets and create wealth. So imagine if they took the port over, and that's a portway for internal from East Africa on in. Right. Fortunately, the Kenyan Supreme Court came in and said, "No way, this is not happening. You're not getting any of our national assets," because what China is trying to do is take control. Look, I can't remember the country in Africa where China has put up their own police station. So what I want you to understand, okay, is that you can deal with China, you can get money from China, but you have to be able to properly negotiate what the heck is going on. If you're taking money from them and there's no way you can pay it back, okay, the playbook for China is if you have no way to pay it back, is simply we'll take a national assets. This is what happened in Jamaica, where they built this particular property, they didn't have enough money to pay it back. And then China came and said, "Okay, we'll just take the entire property." And then what they did is that they built stores and they built a whole bunch of things and they're leasing it out. So there's no cost. There's no cost for land, no cost for nothing. And they brought in all Chinese workers, that type of thing. What I'm trying to say is that we need to apply our intelligence and understand, okay, the only way out for our prosperity has to come from internal. It has to come from our own internal strategies. It has to come from our own. We have to be able to export and grow globally. But we can't fall for the same colonialism 2.0 again, right? Back then, we had an excuse. They had force. There was slavery, transition for colonialism. We 100%. You can understand it. But now, what happens when you have leaders? Okay, when you have leaders who will sell out their own people for a few dollars. And that's what it is. Because from a corruption perspective, that's exactly what is happening, right? So who suffers in the end? The people suffer, okay? Because if you look at Grenada, for example, when you do the math and when you look at the statistics, Grenada is on its way to becoming like a Haiti. People might say, "Oh my God, no." Well, I'm not making an opinion based on how I feel. I'm basing it based on the math and based on the analysis and based on the trend lines of the increase in poverty in Grenada, and there's no growth or there's no economy happening. So the whole thing about China is not to blame China. We have to be responsible for ourselves. We have to make politicians accountable to us, the people. That's why we're in a democracy. And if we continue, there's no such thing as easy money. I mean, this is basic stuff. There's no such thing as easy money, right? So if they're going to give you all this money, where's that money going? What are you going to do with it? Is that money being invested in enterprises? Is that money being invested in local entrepreneurs in Grenada? No. I'm telling you right now that they're building that big in my home area, St. Patrick's, in Liver Beach. They're looking. I'm seeing that they're looking to build this whole thing. Now, if you go, I go into deep analysis on this. That is a geopolitical move by China. Okay, because what I see there, if you read the Chinese, if you look at the Chinese road, what's it called? Claude may know, but they have this grand plan. It's called the Road and Something Plan. So China's agenda is clear. It's geopolitical, right? So when they're talking about building a resort in Grenada, not building no resort, that will be a port. And what will happen, because in order to, China is looking for global conquest, and China is looking, for colonialism from a 2.0 perspective, as I said. So the risk to Grenada is this: if they build that big so-called resort there, and they build a big port based on what a yacht port, as they call it, based on the plans, China now starts moving in from a geopolitical perspective. Now you create a conflict with America. Okay, these things bring war, and what will happen? Grenada will suffer, and Grenada will be caught in the crossfire. You have to think ahead of why people are doing things, and it goes back to power. And you cannot allow people to come into your own country and essentially take over. Now, again, we have to get foreign investment. We have to get capital in, but we have to come with a strategy, an investment plan, and make a deal based on intelligence, and make a deal that is in our benefit and also that will benefit the investor. But that doesn't mean full control and take over if the investments do not benefit entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs. They don't benefit society. That means the people don't benefit. And how can we grow our economy if we can't create? Look, the growth of a middle-class economy is the basis, okay, of all growing, sustainable, civilized society. How are we going to build a middle-class society if we don't have entrepreneurship, if we don't create wealth? Okay, so the whole thing about don't blame China is that we have to be responsible for ourselves. We can't be blaming everybody for our own. We have brains. We are intelligent. All I'm saying is apply that intelligence, okay, to our benefit, and that is what I call the sophistication of self-preservation. We are responsible for ourselves. Nobody else is.
That's a very interesting perspective. And so now it's like, okay, I definitely need to get my copy of the book, because I really want to kind of delve deeper into exactly what you're talking about. So I really want to hear Claude's perspective or feedback on everything you just spoke about. What are your thoughts there?
I think Perry has made it lucidly clear. You understand me? I don't blame these countries and multinational corporations and what have you, because it seems as though, we are regressing, intellectually speaking, because you had a situation where the entire region was colonized, all right? And as a result of that, we had what we call underdevelopment taking place. While development was taking place in the colonized, the colonizers, countries, and Eric Williams made it, really, really plain in his book, Capitalism and Slavery, and we back to square one again. You understand me? I thought basically by now, in 2023, we would have learned our lesson. But what is happening is a recolonization of the Caribbean right now. You understand me? Through entrepreneurship, So you are actually, you have this appetite, yes, for foreign investors, but not because they come in that you will allow them, you understand me, to do whatever they want, and that is what is happening. So we lay we drop our guards, we rule out a red carpet to them. I'm not saying that they should not be given incentives, because they need incentives and what have you. But we had done that in the past, with a lack of intelligence, and it did not work. 1948, to be specific, industrialization by invitation, Arthur Lewis and so forth, and it was not successful. Again, because what we normally do You know, we operate as though we lack basic common sense when it comes to those things. You know, so investors come in, whether it's China, whether it's MNC, whether they come in. And because they are in, you understand me, the operation, the way they operate, bring benefit more to them, you understand me, and their country of origin than Grenada. Take, for example, pre-COVID, we had an economic growth about 5.5%, right? And this is based on facts produced by the Caribbean Development Bank, fastest growing economy in the Caribbean, okay? But what happened? There has not been a corresponding decline in poverty. What's the reason for that? Because most of the profits basically have been what? Expatriated. You know, these companies, they just keep operation money sufficient for their operation in the host countries.